Here we go, Steve. We made it happen. Welcome to the show, brother.
I'm glad. Thank you very much. Thanks for welcoming me. I wish I was in Costa Rica with you doing this, but this ain't so bad.
Yeah, it's been funny trying to get set up because I did a couple interviews in this other spot I was at, and it was outside, and I was kind of worried about because I brought all the little things to hook up, and I didn't know if it would work with the Wi-Fi. So now I was like, how am I going to make this one work? So I set it up in this little Airbnb. So it's good, man. But yeah, so I mean, let's kick it off with I always like to sort of check in with, present moment, what's going on in the world, how we've been, and just see how it's been for you the last year. Cause I mean, this has been its own adversity in itself. So maybe walk us through how the last year, this craziness has impacted you and how
Yeah.
you've been able to sort of navigate through it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's twofold, one on a business level, one on a personal level. I'll start with a business level. I guess in a way I got lucky, after 17, 18 years building a company with Casey Wasserman, as a partner, to go back out on my own, which the original company was the Family, and then to relaunch the Family again. I actually look at it as I got a little bit, again, you make your own luck, sure, but I got lucky. And I've been blessed to be lucky in that, because I think I was planning on almost like my own pandemic, right? You're a startup, you plan on growing, you're going to lose the first year. You may have wins, but you're going to invest a lot, invest in surrounding yourself with smarter people, invest in building a team. So when COVID hit, I was actually still in the hiring mode, which would have been the plan either way, from a business perspective. So I think one thing it allowed me to do is have the time with my COO, Jacob, and president, and the rest of my team to focus on building a core team so that when we come out of this, we're kind of hitting the ground running. Looking back now, I maybe was a little too aggressive because this stupid thing is still going.
Yeah.
But from a business perspective, it actually was really good for me, I think. When I look at if I was at my old company or a lot of other competitors, they're so lack of efficiency in the sense of their size, not in a bad way, but their size, their office rent and everything else. When the pandemic hit, that's just a crusher. And I just don't even know what I'd be going through personally, because that is still I have a lot of family over there still, Casey and Blair and Bart, it's 20-year history with a lot of those employees that stayed. And it's a tough haul for big companies, I think, right now in our space. So I got lucky on the business side to be able to be a little bit more nimble. My plan going into COVID, why I did this again, is to be a more entrepreneur, but also saw a lack. The business became globally very transactional and about mass groundswell, grab. And I kind of figured I could cut a little niche out, reverse of what I did originally. Originally I partnered with somebody like Casey to grow this big company, because the Family, originally what I struggled in back in the 90s, it was like you had to be big to be recognized by brands and athletes and everything else. Now it's like flipped again, in my opinion, that athletes want more personal attention. They don't want to see you in big fancy offices everywhere. They want to see that you're investing in them, musicians, artists, and not looking where their commissions are going to, fancy offices or cars and all this kind of stuff. So I kind of took a big step back. So on a business level, it's been really good. Look, this is lasting longer. And I think actually our big struggle year is going to be this year. I think I'll have to slow down some stuff. Just because I think, no matter how much gas we're putting on the fire, I feel like someone's putting more water on it as I'm pouring gas, which is this pandemic and what we're going through in the world. On a personal level, I started COVID and it was like the best thing ever for me. I've struggled since I was young, and actually even coming out of the childhood I had, which was not easy, being alone, being secure. Like on the outside, it looks great. Everybody's like, oh, he's such a secure guy and ego, whatever. And but on the inside, that definitely wasn't happen. So I know a lot of people, it's cliche, say they did a lot of work, but for me, March, April, May was eye-opening for me, like learning to be alone. My health and wellness, I've always been, not always, in the last 10 years, been really health conscious with food and working out and everything. But that period of time realized how much more important it was. And I think that's what kept me sane versus a lot of my other friends. I think a lot of people, gained a lot of weight. I was talking to a buddy the other day. He's like, I gained 25 pounds in COVID. And it's like, he's still not, but he's in really great shape guy, but just COVID kind of depressed a lot of people. And then come August, to be honest with you, and I was blessed to be up with a bunch of people that I consider family in Gaza Ranch. It's a special place in Coeur d'Alene where there was no COVID, I think, and my son. And so I was doing really well. And then as the summer ended and I was coming back here, I went pretty dark space, to be totally honest. And I think a lot of people, I think it took a lot for me to admit that. I went dark. And maybe because I did too much self-work, and I realized, wow, you got some issues still you haven't dealt with, that were covered up the last 10 years of how busy I was and how everything was going so great at Wasserman and all these like wins and all this sort of stuff. And I think when you take a step back and the silence comes, you start going, oh shit. And I think I went to find happiness in the wrong places. I'm a pretty wear my shit on my sleeve type of guy. Yeah. And so it's not a bad thing for me to say that like, it's okay now to ask for help. And, recently, even as January 1st, because I think even through Christmas and New Year's, I was just in a lonely, dark space. And although my kids made me happy and that sort of thing, I think I was reaching towards, and again, by no means have I ever been a big drinker. I've never done drugs in my life, but even the wine and stuff, and like going to Mexico, then going to Scottsdale on New Year's and raging and having, it's almost like that dark beginning. So January 1st, I went sober January. I'm actually considering going into February. And not in a bad way, but almost like trying to act like a monk in a way of just like no new personal relationships right now. No offense to anybody. I love everybody, but like just trying to really focus a little bit more on myself so that if I do find a partner or give it that a chance, that I can actually be present and secure and, humble into that relationship. So personally, I don't know if I can swear on this, it fucked me up pretty good. And to be totally honest, I think a lot of people are hiding it. And I think I tried to hide it. And in all fairness, like I really was in a good space. I was telling my staff, like, this has been the best thing ever. I'm holding my son's hand on walks every morning, like April, May, June. And then I just think it got, it just kind of prolonged. And then I started to realize what's hitting. So it's been rough, but I'm doing the best I can now for sure.
Yeah. It's been crazy. And it's always interesting just to hear kind of the journey that everybody's been on, the highs and the lows, because there has been a lot of highs and lows for everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some of the tools that you used? Like, what are some of the things that you used to get through those times when you knew that, oh shit, I'm in a dark space. I need to come out of this.
I mean, I have therapy. Like I was a kid that was born and raised being forced by social services and that sort of stuff to go to therapy. So I was super anti forever. And then I realized talking, and I have a couple good mentors that aren't therapists, but like I can talk to them.
Right.
But I still have a hard time, man. I have a hard time, even in front of a therapist who I know is confidential, going really deep. So what I did recently is just start writing in a journal. It's another cliche. I get it. Like, oh, I'm going to start a journal, but like,
yeah, dude,
I really am
powerful, man. Journal changed my life too.
Yeah. And I've been doing it every day now, which is crazy. Handwriting it, of course, like people are like, I do notes on my phone. I'm like, the last thing I need is to be on my phone more. Totally. So it's like little black book next to my bedstand. And I'm excited to look back December 31st. Like, I'm not going to give up this time. I know there'll be days that I skip eventually, but like, I'm excited to look at that because the more I write it when I go to bed, and I realized last night I forgot and my brain was going, when I actually write things down before bed, I think I sleep and recover better. Like I'm super into this Whoop thing now, and like my recovery and my fitness and my HRV, my heart rate and all that. And you can actually see not only wine or drinking, the difference in recovery and how you feel, but also just how like you dump your brain, right? When you lay down in bed, your brain starts going and thinking about these things. But if you write first, again, years ago, I stopped watching TV and there's no TV and that sort of stuff because of what it does to your adrenals, your cortisol, all that stuff. But I guess the biggest tool for me is being willing to find tools. And to be honest with you, I still haven't found it. I know that suicide and depression is a big thing during this time, but it was always a big thing. And I've unfortunately been involved with a very close friend and athlete, Dave Mayer, who committed suicide. I know where he was in a space, and it took me a long time to process that. And the way I processed it was almost like, for a man that was the most confident on the outside, secure, badass, covering a Rolling Stone, inside, like me. I think we were very similar. It's why we were so close. And I think I look at what he did as a cop out. To be honest, I can say it now, like, you're pussy. Like, why would you do that to your family and everything? So I think what's kept me going is actually remembering Dave for all the good, sure, but also remembering what he was telling me before he did this, like a week before. Like, well, I didn't see it or hear it, but like, I kind of know now. And just the things that he wasn't proud of himself, or he was embarrassed for what he did, and almost the admit of guilt. And so for me, it's probably still some of that process is going back to people and saying, I'm sorry, trying to rebuild some things that are still in my head. And then maybe the ones that I don't think are curable have to just go away forever. But yeah, I mean, it's tough when and it's not an excuse. I know a lot of people say get over it, but like when you have the childhood that I had, it's like you reach in different things now, and no matter money or success, it doesn't cure it. It really doesn't. And I thought it did. All that did is hide it. Like women and relationships and money and cars and playing and this and that stuff, that's just masking it. And I think COVID maybe in a way made me realize that I'm nowhere near where I need to be if I want to be the happy person the rest of my life. So I hope I get there. I think I will.
Yeah, I mean, just first of all, unpacking that writing and writing and journaling, and that is so powerful at just kind of getting your stuff on paper. And I think it's a tool that people don't use enough.
Yeah.
That it doesn't have to be like a cheesy, journaly kind of kid experience. It's like, it's just getting your shit on paper. Right. And that's sometimes what it is. It's that brain dumping. It's what we need. It's all the chaos, it alchemizes the chaos onto paper, and it's really powerful. And I can really resonate with you like that, because for a couple of reasons. Number one is getting off the alcohol. I'm off it for 4 months, and I've struggled with that my whole life. I've worked in bars and, nightclubs and all that craziness. So it's a slippery slope. And I also can relate with you with suicide. I lost my younger brother to it 3 years ago now, or 4 years ago now already. And it's crazy because you don't know, a lot of people have moments where they're down. A lot of people have these, you don't really know. You don't think everybody's going to do that, right? Like now for me, it's like when people get into that spot, it almost makes you more concerned. Like, are they going to do that, or do I have to worry? And it's because I didn't think he was going to do that. And you didn't either. Right. And now it's scary in a way as well, because we're living in this world where people are trapped in their homes and they're really being challenged. And that's scary, because a lot of people don't have the tools, and they're going to be forced to face their shadow and their dark side. And a lot of people just aren't strong enough. And it's a scary thought, because I think we're just getting into the beginning of the repercussions of what's going to go on from so many people going through so many different levels of shit, depending. Right. And it's a scary thought.
Yeah. I think, like, for me too, and this is even before the pandemic, is I need to learn still at this age now, and maybe the pandemic opened my eyes to it more. And then obviously being raised where I was, and, my beliefs, the level of racism in the world right now has also just torn me down, growing up around mostly Black young men and women. I look at everybody as equal, and again, I'm not going to say, like, I'll never know what it's like to walk in a young Black man's shoes. But what I do know is that I've experienced it firsthand, that even in a Black neighborhood, going to a deli and getting served before them, in a neighborhood where and it's at an all-time, I always saw it, but like what I see now and what happened at the Capitol building, it grosses me out. And it makes me like, I'm ashamed. And it's like, I have athletes and musicians that look up to me and ask me the question. And the point I was going to get to about, Dave's suicide, I'm always on high alert right now. A friend of mine called the other day, and it's almost like, why are they calling me? And I understand it. I've accepted this, but they're like, Steve, we need help. This other athlete is in a dark place and blah, blah. And I don't even represent him. But it's like, I think what I have to do this year, another one of my goals I was writing in my journal, and I hope maybe other people like my mindset, right? We're super competitive. A lot of what I do is ego driven because I always think the sky's falling, right? I grew up so poor, I never want to go back there. And I know I'll be fine now, but like you always think the sky's falling the way I was raised. Like I never want to go back to that kind of dark place where I don't want my kids on food stamps. I don't want the free lunch for my kids because that was an embarrassment moment for me when I was young. I didn't embrace that well. But like, I think part of it is doing this now for 20 years. And the way I do it, I used to look up to a few agents that I mentored. And the part they didn't follow was the addiction in falling in love with your clients and them being my family. And so I was counting the other day, you know, I've been through more divorces than anybody should want to go through. I've been through drugs and rehabs and wins and losses and heartbreaks and all this sort of stuff. And I think it kind of finally is caught up with me. I'm loyal to a fault. I do a lot of things sometimes for other people more than myself. And I don't know if that's like self-destruction. I'm still working through those things. It's like, do I not care about myself enough that I want to just care about other people? There's that famous saying, do as I say, not as I do. It's like, I do so well for all these people advising them, and then I don't do it for myself. Like, and this gets to spending money, to how I live my life, to marriage, to whatever. And it's like, eventually I have to listen to my own damn advice and wake the fuck up. And I think this is the year to try and wake the fuck up. I keep slipping. We're only 13 days in, you know, I keep slipping back. I see some things that are tempting in this fucking social media world, you know, and it's like, part of me wants to get off of it. And I've taken breaks before, but then at the end of the day, also I'm on it because my athletes do stupid shit and I got to see it first. You know, I'm weekly taking down stuff for them. Right. But you know, I think I do need a break at some time from that because of what I'm seeing and, you know, even what I'm regurgitating. And I went private a couple of years ago and it's still all over the place. So yeah, I don't, you know, I think there's a lot of people struggling, and I just hope that, you know, for me, and I still want to be there for people. And, you know, I just hope people they got to know that we're all here for a reason, and that at some point this will get better. And even in the time that it gets worse, there's got to be a reason that you're here. And, you know, I keep reflecting, even when I go dark, is like my kids, right? It's like, Can you imagine growing up without a father? And all that would be is super selfish, you know, like I say, like, you know, for me, Lauren and the girls, you know, when that all happened, Dave's daughters, it's like, and he was the most incredible dad. He created this whole thing, be a dad, not a fad. But like when you go dark, and I learned from the doctors and just talking, I never understood suicide. It's like, it's a split moment. Most likely Dave regretted it right after he did it, right? Is what they're saying. Like, it's like, So it's like, how do we stay away from that split moment? You know, we've all been there. I know a lot of people have thought about this stuff, and it's really scary.
To be honest, bro, I think everybody's had those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Those thoughts are normal, you know, like I think that's the stigma around it, is that it's a bad thing to have those thoughts. Those dark thoughts come, you know, like they come. And man, I had those a lot in my teen years, you know, I've had them a lot, but it's kind of like you just observe them and like, that's interesting. And you move on, you know, that things are going to get better. Right. I mean, it's just acting on them is a whole different thing.
Yeah. It's crazy. When I had nothing, and like even taking a Greyhound bus from Boston to move to Vail, Colorado with like $100 in my pocket, I never had those thoughts. When I was dirt poor and had nothing, living in abusive situations and all this sort of stuff, I had no depression, no anxiety. I didn't even find out what a panic attack anxiety is until like 10 years ago. Yeah. And I still don't have it, but like this year it's back more than ever. So you know something's wrong, right? But it's the craziest thing, like you said, when you're younger, or, you know, I don't know. It's just, there's always times in the moment. And then I found myself yesterday, like driving in the car happy, but like 6 days ago, January 1st, again, alcohol can have something to do with this too. I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing in this world? I'm ashamed of myself, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, what the fuck, you know?
Yeah. That's the biggest thing with alcohol. It's where it puts your state of mind.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I've been a big drinker. I never have been, like, even when I was younger. It's like, it's just, but I think COVID too, it's like you drink, or like, you know, my thing was wine, is like, there's nothing else to do. Let's have wine. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, you're like, did I just have a bottle of wine? It's like, glass a week. It's like,
and it's like, it's because it's so easy. It's like, oh, it's just wine. They do it in Europe.
Yeah. I was literally looking the other day. I don't know. I'm sure when you were younger too, or when I was like clients, and I talked to Ryan Sheckler about this, you know, there was a time, you know, he's sober, very long time, super clean, healthy. But there was a time, you know, I used to sit with him, to do as I say, not as I do, and be like, dude, you spent $100,000 in nightclubs last year, $100,000. Like, think about how much money that is after tax, right? You got to make 200 to spend 100. And then I was looking back at what I spent, you know, just on clients and as a business, whatever else, and laughing. But then this last year, and since COVID, I looked at my wine bill. I'd be better off going back to the nightclubs. It's like ridiculous because I'm not buying cheap wine. If I kept the corks, like I really should have kept them all, it would have been a problem.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I would love if we could unpack your story, man, what it was like for you growing up, if you want to, in Boston, because I mean, I know that you had a challenging upbringing, but from those challenging upbringings bring a lot of, I mean, resilience and strength and all of that to be able to create what you've done. So if you could, man, I would love if you could, I know you've kind of touched a little bit on it, but walk us through that journey a little bit, man. What was it like for you growing up in Boston?
I mean, it's hard. It's like when I explain this story every time, it seems to get different, and not in a negative way or a positive way or anything, but like, you know, my mom's passed away a very long time now, but it's like, I used to be totally transparent. My dad knows this, and there's a reason why, like, you know, I don't believe anybody's self-made, but Dave and I actually, we have self-made tattoos because, you know, I know now, and I put no longer above it, because I put no longer above it years ago, a few years ago now, because a really close friend of mine, she said to me, do you really think you're self-made now? And it's like, you're right. Like, I've been the dumbest one in the room for like 10 years. I'm so blessed for the people that helped me. And frankly, when I look back, it's even the person that put me on the Greyhound bus, my grandmother, to the person that let me live in an apartment with 9 people in Vail when I got there, to the person that gave me the rental space and that sort of stuff. So I think I used to do like pity me, but at the end of the day, without my childhood, I don't know that I'd be where I am. And, you know, so yeah, I grew up, my parents divorced when we were young. I'm the oldest, 5 boys, 2 girls, stepsister, you know, and they did, you know, my dad was, he's a hard ass, you know, he hitchhiked from 18 years old. He's the oldest at 13 from Canada to Massachusetts, worked for the water company, you know, factory worker, not a lot of money. And, you know, drove the Zamboni on the side, did a bunch of side. He worked in a grocery store in the fish market. The guy was a grinder. I mean, I got that from him. He worked 3 jobs sometimes. My mom never worked after she had so many kids. She was a nurse. She went to nursing school. My mom actually grew up in a kind of a mid-range type, middle class. Her dad owned my grandfather. Sorry, I never met him. He died before I was born. My grandmother was a big part of our lives. She supported my mom and I when things got really tough. They divorced. We all went to live with my mom. My dad bolted. We tried Maine for a while. We literally lived in a car for times. We went to food banks. My mom was a woman who now I respect how hard she worked in the sense of us, like her health. We still don't know why she passed away. They think it's because, you know, we never had like proper medical care. And so when she got sick, she just laid in bed or tried to get better herself. We never could afford to get her help, and she didn't have insurance. She really just cared about us. So she always made sure. And I used to think, you're lazy. I used to really take it out on her as the oldest, you know, saying, why aren't you working? And she said, the Lord would provide. She was a very heavy church, really, really heavy into church. And I know now growing up that like, well, wait, why wasn't my dad helping? You know, why wasn't my dad there? So my answer as the oldest was at a young age to go live with my father. And I went to live with my father. And although he's never drank and been an alcoholic like his father, my grandfather in Canada, he did pick up the abuse fact. And my dad beat the shit out of me. It's just the way it is. And he never thought I would become something. We've broken bread now. We're good. We broke bread at a wedding, which wasn't the right place to do it, for my brother in my backyard, actually, a few years ago. But, you know, my stepmom and him were tough on me, very abusive. So I actually moved out. Like, I was on my own basically at 16, never finished high school, got in some trouble. I was definitely stealing and doing some stuff I shouldn't do to survive. And And then, God bless again, my grandmother, my mom's mom, who really was supporting us. She, always made sure my mom, even when we were in the car situation, she would do everything she could. She depleted all her money on us, really. And even with welfare and everything, it wasn't always good. So, we bounced around the Boston suburbs a lot too, or my mom did, mainly because, low income housing became available, or the church would find a location. Ultimately, they all ended up in Maine more, my mom and my brothers and sisters. I had already then split and stayed in Boston and then moved to Vail. So in 88, my grandmother gave me a one-way ticket on Greyhound bus from Boston to Vail, Colorado. And the way I got there is in the summers, I was bartending, bar backing at my age, couldn't bartend, at kind of an underground shitty bar in Old Orchard Beach. And I had a girlfriend whose family was okay. And I actually lived with them trying to go to school for a bit. And I met a guy named Ray, this Rastafarian kid that loved skiing. In the summer, he worked in the bars on the beach. And in the winter, he was in Vail. And he said, I know you love skiing. And I had fallen in love with skiing through Boys and Girls Club, and then through some friends. Again, always blessed to be around good people through sports, through football, or through whatever, meeting families. And so I was able to ski. My mom actually, when I got in a lot into it, my mom actually worked at the daycare center at Sugarloaf and Sunday River, Maine, so that we could get free skiing. So I got to be a pretty good skier, and I wanted to go out and try to be a pro and try and be a ski bum in Vail. So moved out to Vail, and after a pretty tough city living in childhood, Vail was like, wow, where do all these fur coats and amazing people come from? And that's where it all started. So, but yeah, growing up the way I did, I think to your point, it's like, when I figured out that Ace Hardware didn't take receipts for tools we stole, it's a business, right? It's like, these are the things that we did in the streets, and the street smart, they say street smarts, but like, you're either an entrepreneur day one. I do believe you're born with this skill set to sell, to market, to be on your own, to be an entrepreneur. And, for all the messed up stuff I did when I was younger, and again, I'm still dealing with that, apologizing. And I wasn't a good person. I wasn't a good person to my mom. I wasn't a good person to society. Yeah, so I'm doing the best I can now, I guess. But it was a tough upbringing for sure. The abuse is definitely, I've never never even touched my children, and I don't drink big. So it's like, I guess you learn things. I think the bad thing I got from both my parents is like, I not a bad way, I haven't been great in relationships. Like I said, I was alone so much when I was young. Maybe that's why I always want people around me. So I'm still working through that childhood stuff. And I've had some really good friends be like, get over it. Like there's a lot of people that had rough childhood, and it's like, I'm trying, but like, without going into a lot of detail, I mean, I had a fucked up childhood. There was some pretty crazy, scary shit. When you live on the streets and you have nowhere to go and you're doing stuff like that, it's not a fun experience. And, the embarrassment, because like, I was a cool kid, like I had good friends, and I played sports, and, the free lunch thing, and, going to a food bank, or somebody seeing your mom, at a food bank or whatever else. It's tough. And by the way, nowadays it's like, then you're embarrassed. And now I go, wow, my mom was doing what she had to do. And there's really no reason to be embarrassed. That was just reality, and that was life. But when you're young, it's like, you're embarrassed, like the free food, the lunch ticket, or a WIC when you go in the grocery store or something like that. And, I wish I could have said I was sorry to my mom. We didn't have a relationship. And when she passed, it was too late. And I think that's why, with my dad having cancer twice now and doing stuff like that, that I'm at least trying to forgive him. And, it's scary still for me, because when I found success, he was telling the world, all his factory buddies and everything, my son's a badass. And it's like, wait, weren't you the one and my stepmother telling me I'm a loser and I'll never become anything, and I'm a wasteoid, and I'm going to be in jail? So now you're taking credit. So I do hold that again. Look, I wouldn't say this on a podcast if I haven't said it to his face. Like, he was not a good father, period. So, and I have been the best father in my older kid. Again, you learn, but like my son and I, Jet and I, it's the best relationship ever. And I won't do anything to sacrifice that. So,
yeah, I mean, it's not easy. There's a lot of shame and guilt with our pasts, right? But I really think I feel it all the time, But the only way we can really feel better in the present is to just forgive ourselves for the past. It's harder. It's easier said than done, but fuck, man, it's that forgiveness for who we were is so key at moving forward, because we relive that story over and over again about this person that we were. And it's just
And
like,
it's almost like I live my behaviors in a different way.
Yeah.
Like my outlet then was maybe stealing or beating some or fighting and blah, 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 blah. And now I take that intensity into business, and it's not where I want to be. You know, I've made a lot of mistakes, even in the last 20 years in business, because of my mindset of like fight, you know, instead of letting people in, me fighting them or telling them to lose it. You know what I mean? And it's like you said, you have to forgive yourself in order to move on. And I'm really hoping this is a big year for me for that.
You know, one of the main reasons why I'm in Costa Rica is I'm going to do ayahuasca.
So I'll talk to you about that.
Because of many of the deep healing, you know, like that I know that I need in my life. So it's funny that we're talking, because
yesterday this came up, and 2 days ago, I was at lunch with my client, Machine Gun Kelly, and his girlfriend. He's dating Megan Fox, and I was on my way up there. And so, like I told you, like therapy has been, I haven't dedicated all the time, but I've definitely spent some money, and I've definitely committed to it. And even my they're usually super anti. So I refuse to do pharmaceuticals because, you know, I don't want antidepressant. You know, my daughter has a problem with that. My ex-wife has a problem with that. Like, I hate drugs. And I saw growing up doing bad things with that. I saw what it did to people, even weed, what it did to people. And I just can't go there. So that whole ayahuasca thing was scary to me. And like 2 weeks ago, right after my January 1st thing, I have a really good friend, Taylor, who's done it. A lot of athletes have done it, whatever. And then I had talked to a certain CEO, which I won't name, who, if you met him, you'd be like, there's no way that guy's done ayahuasca. And he said he had an incident when he was younger. And I knew he grew up in a good life, but that definitely messed with him, and therapy wasn't happening. And I think in order to get my dark demons, to your point, basically 3 days ago, I committed to the same thing. So I'm scared.
Wow.
The shaman, like, it's kind of like
for you, man. That's awesome. Well done.
Yeah. But it's scary for me, right? A guy that's never done drugs like that, but also, you know, I've heard some like, I am so competitive, so ADHD, so controlling. I really got to do some prep work before. Like, there's a place, you know, I told you about in Costa Rica, Rhythmia. I'm
going to Soltara.
Okay.
Which is like, you know, they're both the best.
Yeah. He talked about that one as well.
Yeah.
And they talked about multiple days. And then I was like, oh, well, what if I just try it one day first? And then I was thinking, like, you know, and I'm not afraid to admit this once again, is like, I think a big part of why I'm cleansing right now, I think that'll be key, because I know people, like, I think that can affect you if you're like alcohol. I don't want to be throwing up, you know, that sort of stuff. So I think if there's ever a time, it's going to be the first week in February is my goal, to set this up. But I do think I'm retracting. Although Cal and some other people that want to do it, they're like, no, we got to go to the jungle. I just maybe think still, I won't let go as much. I'd like to maybe just do like a Joshua tree with one other person that I really trust or something in the shaman, and try it. But I'm all in, man. I'm going to do it. I've talked to people that just say it changed their life, from Navy SEALs that hug people now that all they want to do is kill people, to CEOs, to everything. And man, if I can wake up from that and be zero ego into insecurities and all the sort of things that I think, from what I'm told, does it. And I don't know if you've done it before, or maybe I'd love to hear what you're hearing from experiences, but I'm all in. I'm going to try it. I'm scared shitless.
Dude, that's awesome though. I'm excited for you. I've been on the journey for, I've done a few different psychedelics, Bufo 5-MeO, DMT. I've done psilocybin, and you know, sometimes it's hard to put your finger on what it's actually healed. But for me, when I start to notice that love and self-compassion for myself and acceptance of my story that I didn't have before, that's when I know things are working. Because I'm very hard on myself. I beat the shit out of myself about the things that I've done. My dad's gone, what I could have done. Same stuff, man. Like, relive it over and over again. And I really think that acceptance is so important. And what these medicines do is from my understanding, is it brings out those things trapped in our subconscious mind that we keep bringing into our lives, and it allows them to be really be brought out, because we can't access them. I mean, you can if you do deep breath work and you're consistent and you do Kundalini yoga. There's a lot of ways you can do it, but sometimes we need help. And I think with ayahuasca, what's powerful is that it's uncovering those deep rooted traumas in our subconscious and bringing them into light. And yeah, we will have to face them. We'll have to face them. It's going to be hard. But then once we face them and love them and accept them, then they don't have the power over us. I mean, I'm by no an expert. I'm still learning. Like I'm going next week, so I'm on the cleanse right now. I can't have any coffee. This is my first interview without any caffeine. It's been 4 days.
So is it a week? So I'm going to do the no alcohol, but the coffee, I 10 years ago, I made a conscious decision. I don't really have sugar. I don't have soda. Yeah. I'm gluten free. But I've cut out the alcohol, but then the coffee is going to be the tough migraine and stuff. So dude, I'm thinking a week, right? A week before, maybe no coffee is the goal. It's tough.
I would recommend go tea for a week or 2 weeks before. Yeah. And then, you know, for me, I just gone cold turkey, and I haven't gone off caffeine since I was 18. I'm 37 now. So I'm actually feeling okay. I, go for a run on the beach. I just slam water, try and just get that body hydrated. But yeah, man, it's
I can't wait to hear. We'll have to do a recap for both of us afterwards. But
yeah, man, I would love to do that.
I think everything you said is what I heard, and my buddy Taylor, who's done it quite a bit and brought some other athletes and executives to do it with his shaman. I'm pretty confident. I brought him to lunch with Dre and Kels and Megan and we talked about it a lot. Colson, MGK, and his longtime friend and manager also, Dre, are looking to start a mushroom company, right? Because in a couple of years, and they really believe in it. I mean, Kels is a great example. I mean, he's off alcohol. He's done every drug in the world. #1 album, huge actor, all that pressure. And, even for me, being involved with him and managing him, I was listening to his music, #1 album. I've listened to it for a year, right? And then it's crazy. On January 1st, listening to it in a different way and actually attaching my thoughts. There's several songs that I now see where he was too, where I am, right? Where his relationships, how bad, he before Megan, and then, drugs and alcohol and suicide. Like he admits, like this album saved his life. I mean, he was suicidal and he was doing a lot of crazy shit. And, for him now, like, he's already going to go places he's just come a long way in the 10 years I've known him. I've only worked for him and with him for a year, but I've known him and he's just an unbelievably creative, amazing person. And now I think finding real love and finding this spiritual side and saying like, I don't need weed. I don't need this. Well, maybe weed, but the ayahuasca or the mushrooms and the creative side of that, and really just cleansing his mind. And his father passing this year, and he's grateful to have that time because they weren't always close. So like you said, it's like, woe is me. There's a lot of people, you, me, everybody, that we all have issues. And I think the more people talk about it, I think we can all help each other, and because the shiniest people that I would say like, oh, look at that diamond, really shiny. It's like, let's see what's really inside the core of that diamond. Maybe it is not as pure as we all think. And yeah, so I'm excited. The ayahuasca thing's going to scare. It's scary for me. I want to be able to let go, and I'm just going to do the best I can. But I think, like you said, I've got some deep shit that therapy is just not going to, and I don't have the time to do all that, because I still do have a job. I'm an entrepreneur. I have a new business. I have family, So if I can kick this out, I'm pretty excited.
Well, it's exciting because, it'll rock you, but it'll change you. And the people around you will be curious. And I think it's huge, man. And well done, because it takes a lot of courage. And
still freaked out.
It brings me to another point, is that, that's the thing in the sports world, in the music world, anybody that makes it, a lot of them don't have the tools to get through a lot of them don't develop the mindset tools or a lot of the things to get through some of those dark moments. And that's why you see so many suicides in the past. I played hockey growing up. So you know, I've been talking to guys, and I'm going to have more guys on the show as well about, you know, the enforcers and the guys that play the tough guy roles, and they get these head injuries and, you know, end up killing themselves because a lot of people don't have the tools once they get to that place. And whether it be with drugs and alcohol in a different industry or not, it's like, oh shit, I've made it. I'm successful. Now my brain is all fucked up. Now, how do I get out of this? And I think plant medicine or psychedelics can be really useful in that way to kind of clear out and give yourself a fresh powdered snow to create those new neural pathways, because I think we get stuck. And I mean, that's not the only tool, but I think like a lot of people, and this is where this is going to, is the question for you is like, a lot of people I feel are lacking those tools. So what do you see, and what have you seen in the industry itself about how people get through this shit? And especially even now with COVID and everything, like what have you witnessed in general? And what is the general consensus of like the skills and people, do people have these or are they lacking them?
So once again, just always blessed to be around the best people by default. Like even when I opened the first snowboard shop with no money in Vail, Colorado, was because of people I've met. And I would say this, so twofold what you mentioned, athletes like us, you know, entrepreneurs, business, same thing, is athletes wake up one day and they're done. So when you're competitive, like we just talked about, when you're a child and you're running and it's like your brain's going and you're focused on other stuff, you don't have to deal with a lot of these issues, right? And then like Dave, what had happened when he retired, he went and searched to be a boxer. Then he did Ironman. Then he did this and he did this. Why? Because you continue to search for that buzz, for that adrenaline. The head injuries, you know, he definitely had a lot of head injuries, maybe CTE and the depression and all that sort of stuff. So I look at hockey, football, basketball, it doesn't matter what sport it is, even if it's non-contact, what I'm praying and I want to continue to preach is that near the end of your career, whether it be business or whether it be as an athlete, especially, or for sure athletes, what I'm trying to really groom them is post-career now. How are you going to handle not being the superstar? How are you going to handle not having something to do every day? Most of these people, I have athletes that retired 30, 32. You have half your life left. And that's when depression, anxiety, and everything sets in, no matter how much money you have. I've seen it. Dave never has to work. God, thank God he left behind a legacy for his wife and kids who never have to work. Like, I mean, I'm sure the girls will, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not money. You've got to keep your brain going. And I look at the list of athletes that are taking pills to get rid of depression or still searching for that high or that buzz because they didn't put tools into place for that plan of when it's over, what am I going to do? Now, a lot fast forward, in my opinion, because of a gentleman, if you want to look him up, Dr. Juve is an incredible human being. He works with a few of my athletes now. He's worked with athletes all over the world, with Navy SEALs. Once again, I love, you know, even ayahuasca. When I hear from a Navy SEAL what it did, because I know what they go through. By the way, just like not walking in someone else's shoes, I will never really know, but I'm close enough to know what they really do and what they do for this country and what they go do some crazy stuff, right? Yeah. And then for them to come back and live a normal life through Dr. Juve and maybe some plant medicine, that to me is the answer. And I think there's other Dr. Juves in the world, but Dr. Juve to me, that's a big part of the answer. It's like the sooner I can introduce, the second I hear an athlete go, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that, even if it's small, it's like, okay, build a relationship right now with Dr. Juve. And even if it's only a short-term session and he's intense, the first session with him is like 12 hours. The very first one, it's a deep dive. But I've seen him currently with an athlete I have right now that went through probably one of the worst injuries ever in the sport, mentally checked out, you know, just a mess, and, you know, definitely depressed and crying. Where he is now because of the commitment. We tried Gervais once and he wasn't all in. When you're not all in, it don't work. Then he went all in, and it's like, whether he ever wins again or not, and I'm sure he will, he's coming back this weekend. But what I will say is he is in the most amazing mindset he's ever been in, spiritually, mentally, that I know he can handle whatever comes now. If he has to retire this year at 26, he'll retire and he'll be fine. Mentally, who gives a shit about the money? Yeah, he'll have money, but I just know where he is spiritually. And by the way, you know, even him in the off season discussed, you know, he took some, you know, mushrooms and stuff. Like just,
Yeah.
he needed something to get the demons out of his brain. And
It's
just
becoming a common thing, man. Like it's helping people.
Yep. Yep.
It's getting out those, it's just rewiring all that
And
shit
I've built
inside.
my mind the last few years to it, you know, because I've been anti-drugs my whole life, like weed, you know, even people like
Yeah.
my comments, like, oh, weed's okay. It's like, no, it's not, you know, but now I
Yeah.
gotta, okay, there's more research, and hey, if this is what you need to survive or to actually live a more prosperous life, then I have to support it.
It's interesting. It's really having that conversation of, I think it all gets tied into the recreational drugs. I think everything gets thrown in the same bucket.
Yeah.
But alcohol, coke, all that party drugs, and they can all be abused in the recreational form. But if you use psychedelics and plant medicine, as you know, in a therapeutic setting, setting is everything. It's a completely different ball game.
Oh, I couldn't, like, I just recently, unfortunately, my daughter had to go through, and she, again, not a drinker, not alcohol or drugs, but anxiety, depression, and is on a certain pill that, other than alcohol, this pill is the only thing you can die from in the detox. That's how crazy Big Pharma is. 21-year-old girl walks in to a doctor in Utah. She was living in Utah. I'm depressed. I have anxiety. Oh, take this.
Yeah.
And now now I have her in detox. You know what I mean? It's like,
wow.
Think about that. When I checked her in last week, think about the woman saying, hey, just so you know, other than alcohol, that's how bad alcohol is.
Yeah.
But think about this, but you're not going to hear that about mushrooms or ayahuasca or anything like plant medicines and that sort of stuff. But so we all look, and this was me too, we look at weed or psychedelics or whatever else, and we're like, bad, like sell those to druggies, whatever.
Yeah.
But really, it's fucking pharmaceuticals. It's Xanax, it's Vicodin, it's, you know, all these crazy antidepressant pills. And like, it's the hardest thing for me to say, but it's like, after my experience with this, I may even just have my daughter go, you know, and I know it's going to be scary for her, but like, cause she's super anti-drugs and, you know, that sort of, she's scared of them, but it's okay to pop the pill. Well, it's because it's the most addicting thing in the world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm very anti-pharmaceuticals too, because my younger brother was on some stuff because of his depression, and then he ended up, you know, making the choice, you know, to do what he did. And
Dave was doing an Ironman on, you know,
wow,
water bottle.
Yeah,
that's how much of a hero, like a machine he was.
Yeah, it's a very important conversation. The problem is, what I think is going to happen is, as they start to become more common, people are going to abuse these medicines, and then you're going to hear stories about, oh, well, this person took this and then whatever happened, but it's because they did it in a way that, I mean, if you take anything in a way and you go and fuck around and you don't respect it and you go drive a car, well, yeah, of course you're going to get, something's going to happen, right? Yeah. Like, that's the problem, is like, from where the pattern that I see in society up until now, it's like, as soon as it gets mainstream and people start to really talk about it, they're going to want to squash it somehow. Like, it's going to be like,
that is the other thing. Yeah. I mean, it's like, think about what you're doing. You're going to Costa Rica. If I did, it'd be in my comfort of my home where I'm not leaving the whole weekend, or going to Joshua Tree. Yeah. I am worried that, you know, what I started to hear this summer from some executives in LA and very wealthy, successful, like, I'm microdosing every day. And it's like, okay, now is this an outlet, or is this like, you know, so that scares me a little bit. You're right. It's like, it becomes too much the norm versus, wow, this can really heal people and be special and that sort of stuff. So, you know, it's like coffee, it's anything. If you abuse it, it's not good for you. So hopefully people take that into consideration for sure.
Yeah, man, it's so important to talk about this stuff, because at the end of the day, we're all struggling.
Yeah. It feels good to talk about it.
Yeah.
These are some of the things I don't even talk about that often. And I think if we did the podcast before we canceled the first time, it wouldn't be as easy to be like, hey, this is me going forward. The more I can share, because I feel like it's, even when like people know me, or, you know, 20 years in this business now, like, It's not like I'm not known by people in the sports or music or whatever. It's like, they see something else. Like, I don't know how many people are like, oh, he grew up as a trust fund kid. It's like, you don't even know me, idiot. Like, and that took me years, right, to get over the, what we call haters or whatever. Like, I was at a dinner once with like 20 people, and this guy was talking about me. I've never met him in my life. And a friend of mine's like, Astephen, said my last name, passed the ketchup. And the guy's wife got embarrassed. He got embarrassed. The wife left. Like, the world is just so full of hate.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you're successful or you do something good or you set an industry or you do something. And so now it's like, you know what? I got to get over all that, which I did years ago, not caring what other people think of me. I know that I'm doing the best I can right now in this moment, and I'm only going to try and get better.
How did you get through that though? Because that's tough. That's what everyone goes through on social media.
You know, what's crazy is it not only, it beat the shit out of me. And I'll tell you why. It's like, I'm a pretty emotional guy anyway. My ex-girlfriend, who is, you know, as she says, she got the best Steve. We're still best friends. I mean, she's the best thing that ever happened to me because she never took my shit and grew up similar in the hood. You know, she definitely grew up a rough childhood and would just be like, stop, you got to work on yourself or whatever it may be. And, you know, it was special to me to realize I kept getting better, but also to realize that, like, you know, it does hurt. You know, it hurts when people say, by the way, even if there might be stuff true. Like I said, I wasn't always proud of myself or my decisions. I made really, really poor decisions. I thought the right thing to do was to hide it and just be there. But then when you realize what it does to cheat on somebody, then I realized, well, no, you should have ended that first and then started this relationship. But like, I regret every day, but I can't take it back.
Yeah.
I was just insecure and a coward to go face that first and then go over here. And to your point, the things I've heard, that dinner table probably woke me up because it was happening for a long time, right? Is like, you know, when you come in an industry, you know, my first industry, now I'm in NBA, golf, as you know, my history, I'm in everything now, but you know, I was the first agent in action sports. I brought deals from 50 grand to $1 million, like a Dave Mirra, Travis Pastrana, Kerry Hart, Ryan Sheckler. You know, when you come into an industry and you do that, there's going to be haters, right? Now there's a ton of agents in my industry, but in 98, there was nobody. It was me. I was the first agent ever in the space, and people talked a lot of shit.
Yeah.
But they didn't know me. And so maybe part of that made me live up to that a little bit. Like, okay, you're going to say that, then I'm going to be a dick and I'm going to be this and that, you know? And then like that dinner that night where that guy was talking about me in a negative way, for sure. And his wife had no idea. And I was sitting there, and it's because he really didn't know me. I went, holy shit, you can't control this. Like, there's nothing you can do. So at that point on, I was like, look, if that's what people are going to think of me, or that's what people are going to say, if I know in my heart the issues I have, which I still am facing, but also sleep good at night knowing I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
Then I can get through all the haters and the hurtful thing. But there was times, the stories I heard about like what I did to this athlete or what I did to this, whatever, it's like, God, that hurt because this is my family. Like, have I made mistakes? Sure. But like, I have issues too. Like, I'm not perfect. Like, you know, it's like you're beating me over something, and then I'd go home and I'd cry for hours on end. And it really fucked me up for a while. And then even, you know, while the business got really big and everything looks really great on the outside, and I was flying around in private jets and living the high life at, you know, my last business, you know, still, again, that's just masking a lot of hurt. And it got to the point, because of my new relationship and some of the stuff that was going on there, is once again, it's like, why do people care so much about my life? And that took me time to realize too, that the reason they're saying something, like maybe I posted something on Instagram, once again, I'm private, and they say like, oh, that's inappropriate. You're hugging your girlfriend, but your hands over her boob, you know, and it looks inappropriate. And I've had people like, now that means you screen grabbed that. And that means you started sharing that to people. Like, you have that much hate in your soul to go do that about something, whether you like me or not. Like, that destroyed me. And it put me on right? I grew up in the streets. Like, I'm going to fuck you up. Put me on the offense, right? Like, I'm going to go find this person that's talking shit and I'm going to fight them.
Yeah.
Well, you can't do that anymore either. You can never do that, but that's not the solution. The solution for me now is to realize wow, I really feel bad for that person. They're hurting. And that's why they're doing this. And it happened with an employee years ago that left me and talked so much shit about me. Like this woman, this person I respected so much and looked up to her. And when left, figured competition, right? I'll do this, I'll say this, he doesn't care about his kid, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do this, and that'll win the competition, which by the way, you should never say, because that makes you look bad.
It does, yeah.
And then how crazy is this? 5 years later, whatever it was, comes back and works for me. People would literally, even my partner going, what are you doing hiring her? She's fucking incredible. She's amazing at what she does. I shouldn't hold anything against her. But you know what I realized a few days later from a mentor going, dude, how amazing for her to be able to walk back into your life and say, you win. I want to join you again. I want to join you. After everything she said.
Wow.
You know what that is? I mean, she did work, not me. Like she did work. Yeah. To have the balls after everything you said about me, you hated me and all this sort of stuff, to come back and work for me and with me.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? That took some. So when people started asking me going, Steve, how did you do that? I go, no. How did this person do that? Like the pride they had to swallow and the ego, because everybody that heard that stuff about me knew the person was coming back to work for me. Can you imagine what that took? So for me, again, it was like, I looked up to that person for that reason. I didn't shame them or anything. I was like, wow, not only would I hire you back anyway, because you're incredible, but wow, the fact that you can walk into me or call me and say, I want to come back after everything you said about me, which again, you were insecure, just like I've been.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with
We're
you.
a lot alike. So I don't know, rambling a little bit because this stuff is important.
It says a lot about your character though, like about being able to, because not a lot of people will hold on to that resentment for so long. And that person's not feeling that resentment. It's like the saying, like, it's like you drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's the same thing. It's like, if we can understand that, is that first of all, if somebody's talking shit, they're the ones that are hurting. It has nothing to do with us. Exactly. And if you're able to see that and you're able to forgive them and just understand that they were fighting something and to see that they've come a long way and now they want to come back, dude, not many people can do that. So well done for that, because like that's got to be one of the hardest things, because people hold on to their ego is so strong. They're like, oh, you said this 10 years ago or 3
right here, you know? Yeah.
Right. But that's really what it is. It's that forgiveness. It's like everybody's struggling and we've all been there. And I think it's the willingness that, people, I know people have had to forgive me for things. I've had to forgive myself for things. And now I see that in other people. I feel like the more you kind of learn about yourself and you forgive yourself and let yourself off the hook, the more your ability to see that in other people also, right? The compassion, the empathy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man, this has been a great conversation. I'm really excited for you. I'm super grateful we connected. I can't
wait to hear about your experience.
Yeah,
and
dude.
I don't know what
tee up a second one.
I'm going to see, and other it's like going to be. The more I research, I'm a little freaked out. But yeah, so I think for me, if it comes out and I can learn from it, and then maybe pass it on how I'm learning about it, and then also just it does. I mean, part of me, I know you're from Canada. I wish I was in Canada probably right now. As you know, my whole family, 13 uncles, and everybody's Canadian, Nova Scotia. It's just sad what's going on in America right now. It really is. And it's not just the pandemic, it's everything else. So all that is doing is adding more to this. Like, I was saying to someone the other day, it's like we all grew up, or we say to our kids, like, you don't know how I grew up. I walk uphill both ways to school, all this sort of stuff. My son's going to wake up and be like, I lived in 2020, like, or 2021. Like, it's like, that's the new saying, like, holy cow, like what's going on? But yeah, with business and, just blessed to be around the most incredible athletes and, partners and staff and everything, and doing what I'm doing. And I know we're going to keep grinding and have a lot of fun doing it. But the thing that I really want to spend more time on is, it's like doing podcasts or interviews about sports and music. One thing is like, things like this are where I hope people can listen. And if they just got something out of it versus talking about business all the time or talking about success and wins, it's like, sometimes it's good, and good hats off to you to talk about like the negative, because there's a lot of people maybe that can't go to therapy or they're embarrassed or whatever. It's like you and I just did a full fucking hour of therapy.
Yeah.
So it's like,
dude,
hats off to you for doing it. You know?
Thanks, man. I mean, this show is like therapy for me, and I never realized it would be. It really has been. You know, it's completely changed my life because I get to have these conversations, and the conversations always surprise me how they turn out. You know, you go in one way and they come out another. It's just like, wow, it's fucking magic, you know. But yeah, dude, I will definitely get another one on. I want to hear. We can share stories about. We'll do a special healing episode.
Yeah. In March we come back, everything's different. It's funny, like I just shaved for the first time in like 9 years. Like during COVID, I had this beard down to here. My hair was to here. My beard, it was like, I swear I was chasing around Wilson, the volleyball from Castaway. Like I was that guy. And then everybody's like, January 1st, you shave, everything new, you knew. It's like, no, I just felt like, it's not trying to be that cliche. It's more just like cleansing everything. It's like that hair, this has been part of me for 7 years, but also during COVID. It's like, if I could just start over, it's going to feel so much better in every way. And it's like, it's not for any reason, just to like start to have the things like I look in the mirror saying, okay, you promised yourself change, or keeping that journal by my bed to say, you promised you'd write in that, or health and wellness, whatever it may be. And so, you know, the message you're sending too, if we can keep all doing little bits, it should equal a mass storm of, you know, just better people in the world and hopefully happier people. I you know,
yeah, man.
Suicide is just not good, or depression, anxiety. I can't imagine how many people are going through it.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's tough. And I think, you know, yeah, I mean, this is what creates the positive change and the ripple. So we've got to just keep doing it. If you could leave everybody with one takeaway message, usually I ask, what is one lesson that adversity has taught you? But really feel free to sort of, whatever you feel, the listener out now after hearing this conversation, if you want to send away a message involving your story, involving what you're going through, what would that message be?
It's funny, like every podcast in a different way wants you to finish. I'm always like, I'm going to prep for the last question because I know where it'll go. And then, so this one, I don't know, for me, what I'd want to leave is that, and I mean this in the most sincere way, I know a lot of people have issues, but for me to come from where I came from to where I am now, we do have a life to be grateful for, even during a pandemic, even during a terrible time of racism. There is a lot of reason to live. And if you accept that, there's a real reason to enjoy the way you live. And I don't think I've always enjoyed that, but that's where I feel like I'm going to get to, and that's where I want to get to. And I guess for me, it's like, to leave in this is to make sure you talk about it more, even if it's talking to yourself in a journal. To be successful in business and in family and in life, I know now, to truly find that, you have to be okay with yourself. And I'm there in a lot of ways, but I'm not there in a lot of ways. So I just hope everybody, that does listen, looks at this as that there's a way out that's not a way of negativity, of positivity, and, surround yourself with smarter people and good people, and don't be so egotistical that you can't do that. And I think that there's a lot of blessings that come from that. So hopefully that's, I don't prep very well for this stuff. It's great to have a conversation.
That's good, man. I always just like to keep it as organic as possible. So that was perfect. Yeah. I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you for having me. It was great. I really appreciate it. Good luck with everything. And
Thanks,
I can't wait to hear the stories. You're going first, so I get to hear all about it. There's still a little bit of those war stories I hear. So I'm excited to hear your feedback. So
where can everybody check you out and find out more about you?
Oh man. I mean, that's the problem. You Google, I guess. No, the family, the family on Instagram is our website. I have two companies. One is unlisted, brandlab.com. That's my brand incubator with Candy Harris, amazing woman. And the Family, FAMILIE, is the athlete representation, music management, and art. yeah, thefamily.com, and our Instagram is the Family. I'm
Awesome.
private personally, so it's a little tougher, but other
That's
than
good.
that, yeah.
Hey man, you got to keep your privacy. If that's what you feel, I mean, that's great. You know, that's
yeah, maybe someday I could just get off of it. That would be nice.
I think I've been thinking the same.
I have a friend recently that she really, you know, she just went off, just to finish on that too. She just went off, and I know she was, you know, she's got 60,000, whatever it is. And she's also a very special person to me, to realize that like I can find love and I can find a partner and all that sort of stuff. But the fact that she went off, I was like, God, this is possible. Like you can go off. It's just like, you got to make the commitment. So yeah, we'll see.
For sure.
Good luck with everything, man. I wish you the best.
Have
fun down in Costa Rica.
Thank you. Thanks everybody.